Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Dr. Jeff Spencer. Great first name, Jeff and Jeff here.
That's right, Jeff.
Is your name Jeff or Jeffrey?
It's a Jeffrey, R-E-Y, Jeff Ree, not Jeff Ree. There you go.
Same as me, R-E-Y, same as here. And it's funny because I got one of my staff in here that's spelled the other way, E-R-Y.
Always, man, always.
I love it. So I always start off by getting to know the guests, what we're currently doing. We're going to flip it around and kind of figure out where you started. I know one thing I just did see on your profile was Olympian in the cycling. Let's start off by Jeff, where you grew up, how many siblings you had, your childhood, and let's take it from there.
I was born in Los Angeles to a very creative father. He was a genius, literally. And my mother was likewise more not in the artistic arts, but in the journalistic space. And I have a sibling. He's 2.5 years younger than myself. And he was actually the head creative at Disney. He's the guy that they came to and they said, well, listen, we got this idea for a theme park. And he said, well, let me go draw it for you. And he would actually render it like in perfect 3 dimensions almost. And he was the guy that they went to, and he just had that genius within him with the 2-dimensional art. And I don't remember my parents. I never remember once ever sitting down and having a meal together, which may seem unusual, but I never thought the parents were there to help out. So I just had this self-start gene, and I figured everything out for myself because that's just how I thought the way things went.
Yeah.
And then, when I was 7, I thought it'd be cool to be an Olympian. I got the bug. And so I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then when I was 10, I showed this precociousness on a bicycle. And I said, well, maybe this is it. And then the last time I saw my dad when I was 13 for a series of events that were maybe untimely, but very timely simultaneously, because that's where the first angel of 3 came into my life, and he became my cycling coach. And he saw something in me, and he invited me to train with him. And he was a 3-time Olympian, 5-time national champion. And he said, first you need to know that well and talented is something, but it's not enough to create a career or to tease out your distinction. That is a byproduct of the experience itself. And I want you to be around the Olympic conversation now at 13, so you know what it is. And he did that not to put something into me, but to draw something out of me if something was there.
Yeah.
And he also said that winning is a learned skill. It's not something that you're necessarily born with, and I'm going to teach you the skill of winning, which he did. And 10 years later, I did become an Olympian. I owe everything to him and the people around me. And that was the first of 3 angels. The second angel when I was 18, and I was a student at the University of Southern California as a scholarship student because I came from a welfare family. And that is where I was also simultaneously had 3 years to my 10-year goal, which was to become an Olympian. I was doing those 2 things simultaneously. But then there was a coincidence from a neighbor of mine. He was a cinematographer who did the editing and the filming for a gentleman who won an Emmy for his film, The Creative Person. And in the film, there was a place where he said, I haven't yet found a person that I could pass my techniques on to. And I knew that it was me. I just got that like knowing because you know. And so the neighbor hooked me up with him, and I didn't know what I was going to say to him other than I was an athlete with his aspirations to become an Olympian. And I saw this film, and this is what you said. And I kind of thought it was me. And he said, well, you're the right guy. I've been waiting for you forever. So let's get started tomorrow. And he was a true Renaissance man. He was born in the late 1890s. He was a Shakespearean actor. He was a playwright, a poet. He was a trained metallurgist. He was a World War correspondent in World War I, but he also developed a whole new type of art glass sculpture. And he chose me to be his apprentice to help him craft his masterpieces. But where this fits into it is that during our breaks where I was assisting him on the weekends, he would play classical music to me. He would read poetry to me. He would read the great philosophers to me. And he said, I need to fill you up on this stuff. And I had the capacity to be able to absorb that. Again, He awoken something in me that made me a much better student, that made me a much better athlete. The athleticism made me a better artist. It made me a better student. So all those 3 things combined created a very interesting composite me that really was, but it was teased out where those three things fused together. And that's the lens that I engaged life through. And then when I was 20, 1 year away from my Olympic aspirations, there was a French man that I met at the velodrome that came and watched the training sessions, and he had a great dignity about him. And I loved this man because he had such poise and he was meticulously appointed, but it was out without bravado. Most the person that had the most humility that I've ever seen, and I wanted that. And I found out later, and he actually was the person that enabled me to get into international cycling. But I found out later that he was a concentration camp victim for 6 years, exposed to the most horrific atrocities you could ever imagine. But yet he didn't have a venomous bone in his body. He was not interested in getting even, carrying a grudge. He was the most reconciled person I've ever met in my life. And so those three angels that came into my life shaped, informed me by teasing stuff out of me that was already there. And so then when I graduated, I did the Olympics. And then once I was done with the Olympics, I got my master's degree in sports science. So I had this, I know how to win at the highest level. That's my DNA. That's what I've been around. That's all I know. And I had the experience to know how to craft big, predictably. And I knew that wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate outcome of very specific things that had to happen. And also from my academic training, I knew that you have to have a body that can push. If you can't push, you can't have a great career. If you can't stay in the game over the long term, you're not going to manifest your greatness, because it takes a while to get there. And then once you get there, then you can create the most significant number and magnitude of contributions to what your legacy will be that could be a case study for others to follow. And then when I worked with professional athletes that wanted to win gold medals and make a bunch of money, and business people came to me wanting to become their own champions, I helped them both, really excel at the highest level, because I knew how to do that. And then the athletes said, I need to extend my career. How do I do that? And the people that were in the business world said, like, how do I not kill myself and have a heart attack by the age of 35 or 40 or 41? How do I not be a victim of what I see around me? So I went back to chiropractic college, where I specialized in acute trauma and in wellness care to service my clients' needs. So with that, I became the guy that people could go to that could do basically anything. I could interpret where they were. I knew what to do to get them to where they needed to go professionally. I could keep them in the game so they didn't blow themselves up. I taught them how to win honorably at the highest level, guilt-free. And so word gets around that Jeff can assemble all the parts that have to be there to create exponential potential, but also to know how to sequence things so that exponential was manifest. And that's how I got to work with Lance at all of his tours. I helped U2 prepare for a world tour. That's how I got on Brance's Island. So people learned to trust the fact that I could see everything from 100,000 feet, rather than being a specialist in one area that didn't know anything about the rest of the whole. That's the problem with some coaches and with mentors. They see part of the pie, but they don't see the whole pie. So they don't know how to assemble it into an exponential capacity that can manifest itself over time. So that's the cliff notes of how I got to where I am today.
What age was it when you had that aha moment, when you had that one client that you really helped transform, and it was just like, this is working. I have something here? Because you obviously started at a young age, right? So what was the age, or what was, I know you don't have to name the client, but it was that one moment that I was just like, okay. And how did that eclipse into other moments?
Well, I've always had the gift. Don't ask me why, but I can see a pattern at any moment in time, and I know exactly where it's headed on its current trajectory. Mm-hmm. And I know exactly how to weed the garden in front of it if it's the right trajectory. But if it's the wrong trajectory, but you don't think it is, you think it's the right trajectory, well, I know how to adjust the trajectory to get to where you want to go. I've always had that gift. My formal advisory started in 1979 when I was however old I was, but that's where that all started. And I was actually the guy that brought formal mental and physical training to the motorsports world, which included motocross, supercross, jet skis, snowmobiles, Formula One. I worked with Gallus Racing in 1982 with the Answer team and family that were perennial standouts in the IndyCar space. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth, and it made sense because I came from an Olympic background. That's how I quacked, and there was a resonance with the sports world, and that's where it all got started. But whether it's boardroom, locker room, the rules are still the same. If you want to create greatness, it's all the same.
Yeah. Working with Lance Armstrong, how was that journey? When did you start up with him? Was it after already a couple of his Tour de France's, or is that the beginning when you started working with him?
I started working with Lance after he had recovered from cancer, and I was involved in the preparation for his first tour, and I did all 7 of Lance's tour's victories with him.
Yeah,
boots on the ground at the tour itself, and that's
what
my work was based on. 100%. My job was to develop the mental and physical recovery processes and procedures for not only Lance but the teams that Lance was part of. Was my job, and it was interesting because I was part athlete because I was an Olympian. And so I was also part scientist because I knew the science of it. So I had this very rarefied space where I wasn't quite, I was both executive and administration, but simultaneously I was like a writer because I knew the experience. So I was this kind of glue that was able to hold all those parts simultaneously together. And the tour is the absolute, I call it the ultimate life clinic because it is so mentally and physically hard. It's like 3 marathons a day for 23 days is what it is. And it's like, you can't go home and sleep it off like you would if you have a bad date.
No.
And you're going to encounter everything in 23 days that you will face in a lifetime as a teammate. So you don't have the luxury of not getting it figured out. So it was really the most important event that perfectly suited my abilities. And it was one of the most memorable experiences ever. But I want to say something really important here, Jeff, too, is that one of the reasons why we were so successful was the fact that we didn't and were not trapped by our traditions and our histories. There was a horizontal management. It wasn't vertical management. Their deal with me is, you know what you're doing. You don't need to tell us anything. Just show up and do what you do without any meddling, which allowed me to create the system of possibility that could be that you would never find in any professional team on this planet at this point in time, because of the barriers to innovation and novelty. So it was a dream come true for me. And, what a great laboratory, having one of the greatest athletes of all time and be part of, that team for 7 years. I was one of 3 guys that did all 7 of his tours with him. And Lance is a very neat guy. He's radioactive. And, people that kind of either look at him as a deity or a demon or a devil because of some of the challenges that he faced. And there's a really important fact that I'd like to share here, if I could, is that, with Lance's drug use and his admission of that, I mean, obviously that was something didn't know anything about, but to just say that it's a very important life lesson because, people thought that he was either a demon or a devil, and I never thought he was either. I just looked at him as being humans. And I feel that if you expect to learn your life lessons from perfect people, then you're not going to learn much of anything from anybody. And, Lance's life kind of reads like the movie title, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I mean, what was ugly is that he sued people that told the truth about him. I mean, that's ugly. What was bad about that is that people wanted to grow up and be like him when it was a bit of a facade. But you know what? There's a third word there, good. He did some stuff that was really good that people should really look at.
And incredible.
It's
incredible.
Unbelievable.
Like, I'm gonna jump in there for 1 second, and
please,
because I met Lance, in Montreal, Canada. I was there for an event, and he was there for another event, and he was speaking, and we were at the same hotel, and we had a good conversation. And this is probably going on. I've been married for 18 years, so probably around 18, 20 years already. Around that period, it was right before I was getting married, and I grew up watching the Tour de France. My dad was a huge fan. So every time there's a Tour de France, me and my dad just passed away 12 weeks ago. And I always say, Jeff, I'm the 44-year-old that would call my dad 3 times a day. I would call my dad and say goodnight every night. He was my best friend. So it's been a rough last 12 weeks. But my dad, growing up, Tour de France was something in our household. We'd all sit down and watch together. My dad was a huge, huge fan of that because I remember my dad always saying, like, there's nothing more physically and mentally enduring in the sports world than the Tour de France. And he always says, and he goes, people look at this as cycling. It's the mental, physical aspect of it combined, there's nothing that even comes close to it.
Sure.
And so I grew up watching the Tour de France. So I saw those all. I actually have a Tour de France in my office in my house, a yellow Tour de France, U.S. Postal Service. No, I got the hat signed by Lance. He actually signed it for me, and cool. I have it in my thing. So it's when I sat there and I saw everything happening to Lance. He did some dumb stuff, like you said, with going after people, but I think he was put in a corner where he had so much pressure on him that he had to defend himself, and he didn't know any better at that moment almost. But I mean, people don't understand how much he's done for cancer research, how much he's done to help people, how he elevated himself in a sport where, I mean, this is a different talk for a different day, that to me, everybody was on the same playing field.
They were.
He was the best of the best. So if everybody was clean, he would still be the best.
That's exactly right.
He was He is probably, it's sad to say, he should be going down as probably one of the greatest athletes, period.
No question.
And people tame him for something that everybody was on the same playing field.
That's exactly right.
And it bothers me. Something like that. And I wasn't even going to go into this conversation today, but that it pisses me off that I see that, because I think he's done amazing things. I think he should be crowned as a hero and crowned for all the research and how many millions of those yellow bands people were, like, the stuff he's done. The stuff he's done is incredible. And then everybody, almost to feel like everybody turned their back on him. And it just drives me crazy when I see that.
Well, I completely agree with you. I actually remember the day that the yellow bands got distributed onto the bus for the very first time.
Yeah.
I was there that moment when they passed them out for the very first time. So, again, to really say that the acts of charity, Lance is an anonymous sort of guy. I've been with him where he actually asked somebody, would you like me to talk with your uncle who's got cancer? He will actually call the guy up on the spot and talk with him. That's the type of guy that he is. I've seen him give Rolex watches to people. You win a lot of money for being at the tour, but Lance doesn't go home with the winning money. That gets left for the team. So again, there's another side of this I think is really important, is that Lance's ethic to honor the team and to honor the fans and to honor the the sponsors of the team itself, it was unparalleled. And the thing that's so interesting about Lance is that the cancer transformed him as well in a variety of different ways. And I know one of the reasons why Lance was unbeatable is that most people fear pain, and they kind of barter with pain. Like, I'll endure a certain amount of pain if I get the guarantee of something in return to myself. And Lance never looked at that, because literally his cancer diagnosis was a death sentence. If you look at what it was, 15 golf ball sized tumors on your lungs, you got the cancer in your head, you got it in your abdomen, your testicles got to come off. It's the size of a lemon. And when I would be, working with him at the tour, when I worked on him and stuff, I would actually have my hand on top of his head, where they opened up his skull to go in and suck the cancer out. And you could see the zipper where they took the testicle off. You could see where they put the intubation chemo tube in his chest when I was working with him. It was like just surreal. And what made Lance unbeatable was the fact that people avoid pain, but to Lance, pain was a reminder that he was still alive. He knew that. So that was part of how we looked at this. And Lance didn't conquer the cancer. He knows that. It was kind of a gift that was bestowed upon him that he took very seriously. And I remember the night before he won his first tour, we got done working together in our usual and customary time. He lets all of his other teammates go before him. He doesn't show up as the king, lets his teammates go before him. And I said, tomorrow your life is going to change forever. And he said, well, when you get a second chance, you go all the way. And I think we need to be mindful of that. And, I've also heard him say that, pain is temporary, but quitting is forever. And these types of things that we hear and see, we need to be around that level of courage in a world that's becoming less and less courageous. And I feel because of Lance's development and his upbringing, he's misunderstood because he is a bit radioactive, because he has a strong stance on those things that he believes to be true. and he doesn't shy away from letting people know what he thinks about anything. And so again,
but those aspects of him are essentially what made him a champ.
There's no question about it. You know, one training session in Europe when we were at, they had a 10-mile climb at the end of a 140-mile ride, and it was freezing, and there were snow drifts that were 10 feet high on either side of the road. So, you know, they got to the top of the climb, and all the other riders, they took off all their clothes and stuff. They got into warm clothes. They got inside the vehicles, and they were sipping warm tea. You know, Lance turned around, zipped up his jacket, coasted down to the bottom, rode up a second time by himself. Just a different sort of guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, you know, and he could keep his heart rate up to 198 beats a minute for 2 hours. I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah.
You know, and so you have that, and you have a guy that faced death and really honors life, and he judges his aliveness by pain. I mean, that's just an indicator that we're experiencing life as it really is. And I don't know how you're going to beat something that has that level of tenacity. So I appreciate deeply the opportunity to share with you
I love
perspective from myself. And, you know, like he would always be first guy at breakfast. He would be the last guy to leave.
I love that. I love that you're saying this all, because this is something I've actually had deep conversations and even arguments with other individuals about this. And to hear it, I'm going to play this nonstop, because to hear this from somebody that was next to him, that was in the chambers with him, is so important. Because man, I think I think I put him on a pedestal. I think he's amazing what he's done. And I'm a strong believer in to be at a certain level. Like, I've done really well for myself as an entrepreneur, and I have close friends, and they're like, you're wired differently. And I always have that mindset. The top athletes, whether you're a Kobe, a Jordan, a Lance, the top entrepreneurs, you're wired in a way where it's you take those moments and those losses, just this fire, and this keeps rolling and growing, and you have that nonstop mindset where it's like you're unstoppable, and that was Lance, and without even a question, right?
Well, yeah, in just about the wiring on this thing is that, like, you know, we have kind of a human nature side of things, but then we have the champion's mind sort of things, you know, and it's like, you know, the human mindset that most people have is like, well, I'm doing my best. Well, that's not the way these guys think. It's like, you may be doing your best, but I'm going to find a way. I mean, why do you think I'm giving curiosity, creativity, and ingenuity? Is to find a way. You know, you want to be like everybody else. I don't. I want to honor my uniqueness. You know, love it. I'm once in a creation, and I feel honor bound to develop and display that. I mean, that's how I pay honor to that. It's a tribute. So it's an entirely different game. You know, we make our decisions on what we stand to gain, not what we stand to lose. That's another one. We don't try to be perfect. We do the one or two things that have to go right. You may whine, but I'm going to win. I mean, it's a different way of engaging life, and it's not reckless, but it's like fearless. It's being responsible and engaging risk. And these people are extraordinarily intelligent in how they size things up, and they're honorable, and they're very appreciative behind the scenes, you know, but they don't always get the best press because of their uniqueness. And I can honestly say that, you know, there was a full-time posse of people who felt that they were the chosen ones to take Lance down. They made his life miserable. I would send him supplements and stuff like that. They would get confiscated through customs. They wouldn't get to him. I mean, things would disappear. You'd have people in the tour dressing up as maids, just trying to wiggle their way into rooms and all the crap, you know. So it was like there was this kind of war behind the tour. There was the tour, but then there was this other event, you know, that surrounded Lance. And again, to be able to show up and perform at the highest level, you know, when you're getting death threats, you know, which we did have as a team, so on and so forth. I mean,
seriously,
for real, 100%. I mean, I've never said that to anybody.
But why? But it's kind of.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting.
You would look at him and
no, it's like
I just can't understand it. It just bothers me, right, when you're saying this right now.
Well, yeah, me too, because it's like, you know, shouldn't you honor the fact that there's a team of people that are willing to adjust and adapt to stay on the leading edge of change, to demonstrate what's possible?
Yeah.
Why would you not honor that? And yet I know we were despised. I mean, people threw urine at the team. They spit on them when they rode past. In the bus, they would throw bottles and heads of lettuce and stuff.
So you don't hear any of this in
Yeah,
media.
it's like insanity. I mean, really, you know, you need bodyguards and, you know, Secret Service and all sorts of stuff just to protect yourself. I mean, you can only imagine like a rocket propelled grenade going into the bus. You know, I mean, it's like, come on now.
And just to keep that mind going when you're
Yeah.
still like you put your foot on that pedal and you got to start going and you got to take your mind. This shows how mentally strong he is too, or even the team, because being able to just and humans, I mean, we're as strong as we are. I mean, everything gets to us. We have to be able to, like I said, separate that, and for him to be able to separate that and still perform at the top level and peak just shows what individual he was, right? Or he is.
Well, yeah, and there has to be an alpha dog somewhere, but the alpha dog has to command the respect of the teammates. You know, you don't have a dictatorship. It doesn't work like that. You know, dictatorships, you can never perform at the highest level. It's not possible, and you know, you can't win alone. You know, no one wins alone, so to speak. So there has to be, the secret to this is to get the fewest number of parts in a system that can harmonize into a single superset that's capable exponential, and then you do the right things in the right sequence, and that's how you become unstoppable, and that's how you create dynasty. And so we had that inherently built into the mechanism of the team itself.
That's your question when you said dynasty. Dynasty is something that was thrown around, I say, a lot more in the 80s and 90s with sports teams. And now it feels like maybe it's salary caps, maybe it's just individuals trying to look for their own growth and not thinking of the team. Why is dynasties something that you don't see as much anymore?
I think that's a part of it, because, you know, we're living in a world of me, and showcasing me. And I think that that's not only fostered by the individual, but, you know, friends and parents do that as well. You know, it's a fear-based mentality that doesn't want to share. We want to hoard it for ourselves. We don't want to support each other into each other's greatness. I mean, the truth is there's 7 billion people on this planet like right now, and none of us are the same. We all have something of highest significance to contribute to the whole that does make a difference. And I feel that, you know, we're always judging ourselves against what everybody else is doing. But, you know, let's say the task is to turn a teeter-totter over. Well, you bring the teeter-totter and I bring the grain of sand, flips it over. So who brings the most important part? Well, no, you look at it is that it's a holistic system where every contribution carries equal weight. But, you know, we're always looking at our capacity against others rather than embracing our uniqueness as our greatest asset. And that's one of the things that people that are successful do. They don't want to be like others, not in an adversarial way, but they want to own their talents and develop them to showcase that. I mean, that's what I tell my daughter. That's why you're here on this planet. You know, you're here to manifest your gifts. And to me, that's the definition of a champion. It's not by comparison or accolades as given and gifted by the press. It's really, have you developed your gifts uniquely gifted to you as being only a once in a creation person, which we all are.
I love it. I love it. That leads into the perfect segue into something we're going to dive into. Let's talk about your daughter. When did she come into your life, and what does fatherhood mean to you? I love it. I love your hesitation because it's so authentic, and I just want to say that. I mean, I just got chills because I love that authenticity of it, and that's very special. So I just wanted to say that before we started.
Well, you know, my wife and I had several miscarriages, and the plumbing was working, but we were never to have our own biological child. It's just the way it was, you know. And so we got the calling to investigate, you know, adoption. And so in kind of my life, somebody asked me, well, you know, what would you like to be known for at the end of days? You know, I said, well, I'm the guy that answers the call, meaning that I know how my truth speaks to me. And when my truth shows up, that calls me to something like the Olympics or my art class career, where I showed my art in the best galleries in New York City, whether it's to write a book, which I've done 3, I show up of service to that. And I don't have a problem standing underneath, being informed by something bigger than myself to follow. I feel like that's an honor ritual, a privilege is what I feel like. And so we were, you know, called to explore adoption, which we did. And quite interestingly, the American adoption was too difficult for us just because of the logistics and all the hoops you got to jump through. It became insurmountable. And so on one of the Tour de France teams, we had a Colombian, and this guy had just beautiful skin, these white teeth, and he was happy. And the tour is not a place to be happy. I mean, it's a pain fest for 21 days is really what it is. But this guy showed up happy, and I really liked and he performed well. First Colombian to wear the yellow jersey. And I really liked him, and he loved his family, and they have a religious side to them, Catholicism, which I'm not, but I like the fact that there was this extra component to their lives. And so I said, well, let's explore a Colombian adoption. That's what I told my wife. And so we did. We found somebody that could broker us with an adoption possibility in Colombia. And so once we jumped through the hoops, we went to Colombia. By the way, I was 58 at the time. I was at the height of my career. I was at the height of my earning career. I was, work with U2, with Lance. I mean, I was kind of like the guy behind the guys, behind the guys. And so it couldn't have been a better place for me at 58. It was such a great age. And when we went to Colombia for 6 weeks, we took legal possession of our daughter. The adoption wasn't complete at that time, but it was like kicking the tires. You get a test run for 6 weeks, and then everybody votes. You want to do this? You're not sure. You not want to do it. We and the child then cast our vote at the end of 6 weeks. And so we, I did a kind of a psychic check on myself, like, is this something that we should do? And I had no vested interest in doing it for my own purpose, but, is this really the right thing to do for humanity? And I was willing to do either, and so got the all clear signal. So we brought her back to California, LA. My daughter had never been on an airplane. She'd never been on an elevator.
How old was she?
She was 10.
She was 10 already.
Yeah, she was 10.
Yeah,
she was 10. And so she was kidnapped by the authorities because of the atrocities that she was exposed to and put into the foster care system for 5 years. Was not adopted. So what she's thinking? Nobody wants me because I haven't been adopted yet. So just imagine that for 5 years. And, her parents did come and see her once, and they said they were going to come back and get her. They never came back. So you can only imagine what that did for her, among other things. And so when we got back to California, I said to my wife, I said, she doesn't speak English and we don't speak Spanish. We have no language. We had 3 sign languages: quiet, food, and sleep. That's all we had. There was no language. And I said, she has no school, and she's 10. And they have school in Colombia, but there's no reason to go there in rural Colombia, because look, in Colombia, you're either going to be in the drug world, you're going to be a prostitute, or you're going to die early. I mean, those are your 3 options. And I said, she's got severe PTSD and ADHD from being beaten up and, abused in every sense of the word since the age of 4. She's got a parasitic ridden body, severe malnutrition for 10 years. She has every risk factor known on the planet, is 100 on a scale of 10. I said, this is a formidable foe. And I knew that because of my work with high performers. I could size what we're dealing with very quickly. And I said, I need to eliminate 90% of my professional life right now to be her father. Along with it, my income, our income, just the way it is, because as an Olympian, I don't play a bronze medal game. It's not possible because, that's not my constitution. It just isn't. And I said, we have to deliver on our promise to her because everybody else has let her down, her country, her family, her friends, everybody. I said, this is an honor ritual that we have to service at the highest level. And which we did, and we committed to. My wife cried every day for 9 years and 10 months. It was so difficult to deal with that. But, I always felt with my daughter that she did not ask for what was put onto her. And I always felt that her soul was not tampered with at a very deep level. I just kind of had that innate knowing. So I had a lot of trust and faith in that. It wasn't wishful thinking. It was just a knowing that was. that kept us in the game. And then so after 9 years and 10 months, and my wife's crying every day, but yet my wife did not cry in front of my daughter, but she did what she had to do to be her mother, to be able to fulfill our obligation to what we believed to be true for our daughter, that we were willing to do. And we just did not want to save a life. We wanted to express and manifest a potential. That was what our goal was. And so we had a staff of, I don't know, it seemed like 100 people. There was like psychologists, there were doctors, there were coaches, there were tutors. I mean, there was any and everything not to do for my daughter what she needed to do for herself, but we needed to keep her in the game because there was nothing there. And so that's what we did for 10 years. And then when she graduated from high school, that was its own miracle because nobody in her family had ever graduated from elementary school. And so when she then was able to do her own work in college to get through community college, I knew that she had crossed the threshold, towards her own independence. And she no longer had nightmares and all of the stuff that goes along with kids that have been severely abused. And so at that point, I realized that she can be a self-manifester, and we don't know how deep the scars of what she was exposed to are. That's always a kind of an X factor that you have to deal with as it surfaces. But I'm really happy and proud to say that just a couple of months ago, she graduated from college. So that was a big deal for us, for her, because we wanted someone whose genius could be demonstrated, not for our sake. We're anonymous in this thing, but for her sake, because we know that everybody has a contribution, that we should not decide in advance what it is by comparison with others. As long as we're showing up as the true us and we're developing our skills and we're doing our contribution as it should be done. And so, Jeff, there's, if I may share a couple of things that I've learned from
this.
100%. Is that number one, you can love anybody. You don't need a special reason to show up and love. You just decide you're going to do it. It's like a one-way street. You don't do to get.
Yeah.
You do because you want to do it, because it's the right thing to do. And so I've never, the rewards of that can never be like underestimated, because I also learned that there has to be an implicit trust and process, meaning that you don't try to figure out where this is going to go, and you don't make your decisions against what you think you may need later. So you're going to hold something out that you should be applying like right now. It's like whatever has to get done now, you just do it, and you have to have an implied faith in the process, because sometimes you don't have any visibility. All we had was, can you get through a day? If we got through a day, it was a great day. We didn't know what the next day was going to hold. But there's also an invincibility and a freedom that comes from that, because you realize that a lot of the stuff that you think you need in life, you don't need it all. All you need is a bed, and you need your creativity, and you need energy, and you need health. And as long as you got that, you can basically do anything unencumbered. And so there's an invincibility that comes along with that, because you realize nothing can hurt you beyond what you've already been exposed to. It's like not possible. So there's joie de vivre, there's an expansiveness of possibility, and there's a resiliency, an advocacy for yourself and for other people. Just takes on a different characteristic. And I also realized that the most important decision anybody can make every day before they show up in front of people, places, and things, you have to decide how you're going to show up.
Yeah.
Are you going to show up and give the best of what you got to humanity and everybody, which they deserve to have? Or are you going to show up and let your moods dictate everything? Well, the real me doesn't feel like it. Well, that's not the real you. The real you that abstains from that and shows up from the highest self. And that's your therapy for yourself against yourself. But it's also what you give others to show other people what's possible. I mean, there's nothing better than that. And you always have enough energy to do anything on behalf of other people. Another lesson. Where we get exhausted is that when we're frustrated that we're not getting what we want for us, as if the world should revolve around us and our needs. It's not like that. There's always enough energy to do anything on behalf of anybody else. And probably the most important thing that I'll say here, among the many things that I could say, is that you never, ever discount the possibility of a miracle, ever. You always hold that really sacred, and you always hold that really close. You can't demand it to happen. You can't command it. It's a gift. But the point is that you never, ever, ever withhold the possibility of a miracle. So you remain in the state of receptivity to receive insight, to know what to do. You petition for the strength to be able to execute what has to go right. You be faithful to the mission in wherever it lands is where it lands. But it's important that at the end of the day, that you recognize and can say that there's nothing more that I possibly could have done. And whatever that outcome is, it's the balance sheet, in my opinion, that leads to a life of tranquility, purpose, and value, where you can turn your back without any reservation or guilt or apprehension about what could have been done, because you know that you showed up for duty. And to me, there's nothing better than that.
I love that. I mean, everything you're saying is how I essentially live, right? I mean, you do something because you want to do. You don't do something for a reward. And
correct.
And this goes both ways. I mean, you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else. Yeah. And then and just love people. Just pass it on. Care for people, man. Life is so short. Yeah. And you know it is. Jeff, is you always hear this when you're young. Time is abundance. When you get older, you start looking at your family, you start looking at your parents, you realize that time is a currency, and you start understanding not to live with regrets. And I think that the biggest thing is a lot of people don't have that mindset of not living with regrets, and they don't make peace with broken relationships. They don't.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna be a little story.
Yeah,
that just happened, and it bothers me so much. My dad and his brother, which was his only essentially family, when their dad passed away, like most families, money gets in the way. My dad was a very simple person, never cared about money. We didn't have much growing up. He was a factory worker, but my dad filled me with so much love. He was always there. So we had this incredible relationship. So my uncle allowed money to manifest his thoughts, and their relationship got very staggered when my grandfather passed away, their dad. And my uncle did quite a few things in a very short period that really hurt my dad, and my dad pushed away. And for 12 and a half years, it wouldn't go a week by that I said, Dad, I go, he's your brother. You got to make peace with it. You don't have to forgive him. You got to make peace with it. Yeah. And my dad kept saying every day, he goes, when your uncle's ready, he'll come talk to me. When your uncle's ready, he'll come talk to me. And a week before my dad passed away, I said, listen, you got to just give in, reach out to him. I mean, he's your own. If something happens, you're going to have the regret. And he never did. My dad passed away. And because of COVID, it was a very small funeral. And a week later, my dad passed away. It's been 3 months. I've been going to the cemetery almost every day to spend some time with them. And a week after, when I got there one day, there's a letter stuck behind the stone, and I opened it up. The letter. It was my uncle. Yeah, it was my uncle, and it killed me. As much as I felt a relief, but it's just still killed me. There's a letter from my uncle saying sorry, and he wished he came to say sorry earlier. Yeah, wow. And that just, I stood there for about 10 minutes just crying, and I was just like, why couldn't you have done this? Yeah. And yeah, man, we just have to learn how to forgive. You have to learn how to love. You have to understand that life is so bloody short. It's to live with this anger and this stress over things that really don't matter it makes no sense. I told my daughter when she was 11, I was tucking her in bed, and she said, Daddy, in her broken English, she said, I did some really bad things in Colombia, which she did because she was raised as a criminal. Yeah. You lie, you cheat, you steal, whatever it is. I mean, look, she stole food to eat. She told me I used to pick up gum off the street, and I used to take gum off the bottom of seats that I would sit on. I would pull it off the bottom. I would chew it so I wouldn't have hunger pains. And so, yeah, she was raised as a criminal. And she said, I want to apologize, Daddy. How do I do that? I'm here and they're there. I said, well, sweetie, you have a magic eraser. I just made this up on the spot. I said, you have a magic eraser. She said, what's a magic eraser? And I said, well,
you can go to them in your mind as if you're standing in front of them, and you can make your apologies to them about what you did right and what you did wrong, what you'd like to make amends for. And the magic eraser will make everything right. Even though you're here and they're there, you got the magic eraser. And she got a big smile on her face and said, "Is that true, Daddy?" I said, "Yeah, that's true, sweetie." So we all have a magic eraser, at any point in time. And when we use it, it's a
Powerful.
mechanism to actually purchase our own freedom.
Yeah.
We're the ones that hold ourselves back from the person that we can be. And I feel that, if we do nothing more in life, let's just make sure that we are, I believe that we're honor bound to find our way beyond our humanness to become superhuman by transcending the things that we're afraid of looking at that hold us back from being the best that we could be for ourselves, but also our contribution to humanity and all those people that we touch. And I feel that we should never decide in advance the quality and the value that we bring to every second, because my daughter, she would jump up on me, wrap her legs around me, nuzzle her head into my chest because she'd never been hugged. I mean, she used to say to me, "Daddy, do you think my mom's thinking about me?" Like on her birthday, that stuff would just shred me emotionally to hear that. But the point is that let's not decide the value of who we are and what we say when we show up and what we do. I think every moment of every day, how we show up without a word being spoken, with the words that we do speak, it does have a global impact that creates a domino effect that ripples out through all of humanity and all of eternity. And can we just not decide our own value? Because left to our own devices, we'll talk ourselves out of our potential. And by comparing ourselves against others, look, all of us are great at something. Can we just be the greatest at what we're great at? And can we just have an inherent trust in the value of that? Because when I was working in a bike shop and this guy came in wearing a t-shirt that said USA Olympic Team, like I wanted that t-shirt. And so I went home and I drew it. That was my logo for what I would look at every day. And I had my training plan: be brave, work hard, no excuses. That's how I was going to become an Olympian. I wrote it with my crayons on a piece of paper. That was my manifesto to become an Olympian. And he doesn't even remember wearing the t-shirt. So I just think it's really important that let's not decide about what our contribution will be to who. Can we just sort of show up and be the best that we can be with an inherent trust in that process? It frees us up. It allows us to be a better us. Life becomes a lot less frictionless. It's a joie de vivre. It's a state of being that I think the currency, you can't place a value on that.
I love that. I'm going to dive back to one thing that you had mentioned. That is another thing that kind of bothers me quite a bit. We had close friends of ours that went through the whole adoption scenario, and I just cannot wrap my head and understand how North America, the amount of children that need homes, and they put families that could offer a safe, loving home through hoops and so much red tape to adopt in North America.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
Man, it's like I have no idea.
Friends of ours went through. They ended up having to go to Eastern Europe to adopt their child, and they tried in Canada for over 6 years, and it wouldn't happen. And they spent so much money and so much time, and I was just like, you're spending so much money, so much time to do something that, to be honest, should be free, because you're opening your heart and your home to somebody to give a better opportunity. Like, why is this so difficult? And when you said it, I just shook my head. I was thinking in my head, I'm like it's just, this is a constant story every single day.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. I mean, it's like I felt like if I need to talk to another psychologist, I'm going to go crazy. It's like the psychologists, when they ask me stuff and I tell them stuff, they say, well, you can't possibly mean that or be that. Well, what do you mean I can't? You asked me and I told you what it was. Well, no, you can't possibly be like that. Well, what are you talking about? So, again, for us, it was just insurmountable. And I just realized this is not going anywhere. It was really painful to have to admit that. I mean, the time and effort and the expense. I mean, I don't care about all that. There is a sort of an implied exploration on all this. I get that. But, at the end of the day, I mean, there's 138 million kids that need families. And each of those kids can either be a contributor or a consumer of resources and time and energy. So it's like, I just don't get it myself, Jeff. I'm baffled as to the why behind that, but such as it be for some of these, government programs, et cetera, it becomes extraordinarily difficult. Yeah. So I'm glad that, we've had a solution that worked, well for us. And let me say one other thing I think is really important here is that, when people ask me about it, and I don't talk about it much, but they say, well, I could never do that. What about your career? At the height of your career, you gave it all up. Well, I actually didn't. I was still working with a handful of elite groups and organizations that I work with. That's what I do. I'm kind of like the kind of master blaster of getting to the top and staying there. And so I always felt that I never felt like I was giving anything up. I didn't. I always felt that it was giving God an opportunity to show me a bigger or better future for myself that I couldn't conceive of. But that wasn't a barter, because I just don't think you barter with things like this.
No,
you show up and you just do it because you're called to do it. There's no bartering, but that's the way I truly felt about that. And I feel like there's a certain liberation that comes along with this, where you become a bit carefree because now you've gone all in. You're not straddling one leg in, one leg out. You just go all in on it. It's an adventure. It allows a certain level of spontaneity. I think, as we get older and we become more affluent, sometimes we get tighter and we start to play a real good defense against life, and we try to hoard and protect things a little bit too much, and we kind of losing our creativity. Exactly. We're losing all that sort of stuff, and then we start to die a bit, it's just not a good place to be. So I just wanted to kind of throw that.
I think it's just different cycles of life we go through, right? And we have to embrace cycle, enjoy the journey. I mean, when my son was born, it became a different cycle in my life. Those 4 months. When he got home, it was another different cycle. And you learn to adapt. You learn what is important. You learn to sacrifice certain things if they are important, and how to sacrifice other things to get focused on those, right? So it's just how you go through, and you're always going through cycles of life. Like the last 12 months, now I'm spread between two families. I'm taking care of my mom, my sister, and I have my family. It's a cycle of life. I've added another 3 hours to my schedule every day that I'd never had before, but I learned how to sacrifice. I learned to realize how to study my schedule, how to really understand my schedule, and what parts of my schedule are not important that I could kind of eliminate, which individuals in my life that are taking and not giving back that I could eliminate. And you start really, really focusing and toning, and you have an understanding of what is important. As long as you really get that and understand it's just a cycle of life, and you just have to enjoy the journey, I think you're fine. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, is that really a sacrifice though?
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, people think it is a sacrifice to your own ambitions, perhaps, that you believe that have to happen to get to where you want to go. But a lot of times all the great stuff in life doesn't happen the way that we think that it's going to anyhow.
100%.
So I think there needs to be, a receptivity of process, because actually you gain strength and momentum, but also you gain confidence in yourself by not being encumbered to that which you think that you need.
Yeah.
But you kind of don't, you kind of just need us and belief in self. Or let me change the word here. We go from belief to knowing that we don't need what we think that we really do need, like at the end of the day. But if we've never exercised that muscle in reality, well, we don't know that.
Yeah.
So we don't show up with a level of confidence and certainty that no matter where we are, we can always find a path forward. And if we're talking about what's the end game here, is it tranquility of being, or is it stuff? And look, I love fine art. I love design. I love great craftsmanship. I like great conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm not conceding that, but I'm just saying that, again, if tranquility of being is really the end game, then there's a different set of parameters that are required that go against what our human nature believes that it needs to fulfill itself.
I love that.
You know?
I have to ask you, give me one good story of Bono with YouTube. I have that. He's another gentleman that I met. I know that's just everywhere. It was just been in the back of my head. I just wanted to ask you. I met Bono, same thing, years back at a restaurant, and I was taken back how nice he was, how just open he was. So give me one good story of a tour, something that you guys did together, just put a smile on your face.
Okay, so I was
that turned the conversation around, huh?
That's the funniest thing. All right,
curiosity, right?
Yeah,
it's all about curiosity.
Yeah, presto changeo. So so we were on the jet, 737, the band jet, right, where you go from venue to venue, 131 venues over 18 months. And so
you're toured with them.
I didn't go on the tour with them.
Okay,
I helped them prepare for it.
Okay.
And when they did the first couple of gigs in LA, San Diego, LA, et cetera, I was with them on premises for that as well. But then the interim where we were doing the rehearsals and all that stuff was just an amazing experience. But so when we were on the plane, right, and so I was working with Larry, the drummer, right, on some stuff we needed to clean up, and so Bono was wiggling his hand, and so I looked up and he said, "Can I see you this evening?" I said, "Yeah, of course, we'll see you there," right? And so when I saw him there, we got done doing what we had to get done, right? So he sort of jumps off, and he had this, that RCA Victor dog that cocks his head to one side, kind of like puzzled. He sort of had that puzzled look on his face, and he said, "Strange, but I feel really good." And I said to him, "Well, I specialize in strange," thought I was being clever. And he said, "Well, then you're at the right place." And so there was this sort of immediate conversation that was more than just humorous, but it was a confirmation and a validation of a human experience where, see, that level of play, you have to produce the extraordinary has to be the normal.
Yeah.
Because if it's not extraordinary, there's no reason to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm not there just because I'm their friend. It's like there's an expectation and a trust there at a very high level that carries a lot of risk. I mean, you could only kind of like imagine that if something goes wrong, but if you don't do the extraordinary, then you limit capacity. So there's high risk, high reward in a certain sense. But if you know what to do when to make the extraordinary the normal, then it creates an exponential glue of trust. And to me, getting the trust of people is the most highest privilege one can ever have, being entrusted with something that people need in order to manifest their greatest self, and their being and their contribution is the greatest honor possible. So that's kind of what that was, because it was mission accomplished, but he recognized it. And I said something that was, I thought, kind of tender back to him, like I specialize in strange, rather than, well, that's supposed to happen, just I specialize in strange. And then him saying, well, then you're at the right place. It's kind of an admission that we're all kind of part of the same collective, and there's an inherent trust and possibility here. Welcome to the family. We work together, we show up together, we win together, we leave together.
I love it.
So that was just an amazing experience that just first popped into my head.
You actually somewhat answered this question prior in our conversation, but I only have one set question I always ask at the end, and I'm just going to re-ask it so you can put a little more thought into it. If something were to happen to you today, in a few words, how would you want to be remembered or described by your loved ones?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I was the guy that answered the call. I was fearless about answering the call, which I've always been. I don't know why that is, but as I said before, I've always had a level of sensitivity to, there's a couple of ways that you can learn things and you can respond to life through. you can either learn by reading books and taking classes and things like that.
Yeah.
I believe that there's a way of being informed without that. And I've found that I'm much better if I just sit and contemplate and I observe things and I look for connections and wonder about, well, if I see that this happens, what's the mechanism behind that? That somehow I am given the connection between the two. And that works really well for me. Sometimes I feel like if I'm in a library or I'm in a museum and I'm looking at the 2,000 pieces of Grecian pottery, the shards and things like that, my brain feels just kind of saturated. It feels like it's being imposed on, where I kind of lose the receptivity to receive and ponder and wonder. I just found that that's a little bit of a better way for me. I'm a very fast and prolific reader, but I read bits and pieces of certain things, but I give myself a lot of space to contemplate and open up and wonder and remain in receivership of insight as to the why behind it. So there's that side of it. Also the when to take action on what. Yeah, I think it's the same thing. Yeah. We can do our pro and con list intellectually, where we're asking a question with our brain and we're answering with the brain, but we know that the brain isn't always accurate, doesn't always see all the details. The timing may not be correct. There may be other human motives and reasons for taking actions on certain things that may contaminate the optimal maximum output that's possible. So I've found that there's also a sense of timing and a sense of being somewhere when that I have a really good instinct for. And it's not that I'm reluctant to accept responsibility for making an intellectual choice, because I do know that I have a intellectual capacity as well. I know that I can verbalize things pretty succinctly as well. But people think, well, maybe I'm a brainiac, but really I am more of an instinctual being. I'm a pattern recognizer, and because I'm 70 now, so it's not exactly like it takes about 50 years to have one pass through life where you've kind of seen everything for the first time, but you don't really know that until you start seeing things a second and a third time. So I'm 2 decades past that, where I've seen a lot. There's not much I haven't seen. So pattern recognition, and I believe that every second there's a context that presents itself that has a best engagement action. And if we can interpret the context correctly and we know what to do based on the evidence, historical evidence, it's not just guessing or emotion, but there's a high-speed computer at work here that recognizes and knows what to do almost simultaneously. And that's the value that I actually bring to my clients. I can look at the context of their life taken as a total, as a composite of their personal or professional lives, and kind of know instantly what the one thing that has to go right is. And so why that's valuable, in long-winded way of answering your question here, but you can intellectualize things forever, but if you have pattern recognition, to be true because of historical evidence, and that's a huge shortcut to best answer with highest assurance and predictability possible. And so that's why, for me, I'm the guy that showed up faithfully to answer any call that was presented.
I love it.
Fearlessly, to honor the privilege of being given insight and called to something. That would be it for sure.
How long, I was going to end it here, but I want to ask you one last thing. How long have you been married for?
It's funny to say that, man. We just celebrated this past weekend, 2 days ago, our 37th, is it 37? It's our 38th anniversary.
This is being recorded, Jeff.
Yeah, well, and we still like each other. So it's an unconventional relationship. Always has been.
37. My parents were married for 51 years.
Yeah.
51 years. Yeah, it's crazy. 51 years. My mom met my dad when she was 13. My dad took early retirement at 55. So my mom was a couple of years younger. She decided to retire too. So they spent almost 25 years, and they never were a day apart after he retired.
Amazing.
Yeah. What does your wife mean to you?
Well, she is courageous. She is willing to explore and support. I think her faithfulness and her ability. She was a nurse for 23 years, and to be of service. And she has just an amazing heart. And she's like a fresh can of 7-Up. She has a vibrant personality that is unshakable in its commitment. When I think of her, I think of also someone that answers the call again faithfully, and whatever that call is, she shows up. Just an amazing human being for all the right reasons. That's more than just one word.
Yeah.
But one word would not do justice to the person who my wife is. And to say that, she went back and got her interior design degree at the age of 50. And so she's a green non-toxic interior designer. And one of our hobbies is to, find homes that we can.
So you flip homes?
Well, we don't flip them. We live in them, and we curate them, and we create kind of an architectural kind of masterpiece out of possibilities. And that's one of the things that we do together, that we love doing. Of course, over the last 12 years since the adoption of our daughter, it's been all hand on deck for that.
Yeah.
But that's been, one of the things that we both love.
I love that. That's very cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
This has been a fun conversation. I know that YouTube threw you off there for a sec, but
that's funny, man.
This has been a great conversation, man.
I will say one other thing about YouTube, that they bring Jack along with them. Jack is kind of their mentor, sage, preacher guy.
Okay.
And he goes out and he blesses the arenas or whatever the venues are that they're performing in, which I thought was an amazing thing. I mean, to have the sensitivity and the thought to want to create the highest value experience for everybody.
That's awesome.
By deliberately having that, to me, was another part of this that I thought was particularly meaningful.
I love it. I love it. I love it. How could our audience get a hold of you, get your books? Just give us a little rundown. We're going to still put everything in our show notes as well, but let us know how the audience can get a hold of you.
Yeah, well, thanks. If you want to look at some of the models that I've created, then you can certainly go to beforeyouwin.com, beforeyouwin.com. That's where you'll get some models, some of the things that I've done, that I've crafted to help my people get to the top of their games and stay there. If you're interested in having a conversation about me and where you are, what you're thinking, you can go to my personal website, which is www.drjeffspencer.com, DRJEFFSPENCER.com. And you can always submit an application to me that will come to me, and I'll get back to you, and we could find a time to get together and discuss what you're thinking. So those are the two best ways possible.
And your books?
Yeah, the books right now, they're kind of out of print, but stay tuned. If you go to beforeyouwin.com, you'll get the opportunity to get a white paper that I created. It's called How Not to Blow It Just Before You Win. Okay. And I wrote that because I find that sometimes when people just get to that threshold where they're ready for an exponential jump, they screw it up every time.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that doesn't happen. That'll put you on the list, and you'll be informed of all the stuff that I'm up to.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I appreciate this. This has been, once again, a fun conversation. I love that we've connected, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more things we'll be doing in the future. So thanks so much, Doc.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you again, Jeff. And just be mindful, everybody, there's only one of you in all of creation, and there's always room at the top for the best. Thanks, Jeff, for the great opportunity.